Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. So I'm Lisa Jeanson, your moderator. It's my great pleasure to guide you through this exciting session. And we'll talk about usability testing and practical constraints, where speed and precision are more critical than ever. First, we're going to talk a bit about Perfection and Unguess. So we are Perfection, a part of the Unguess group. We are two teams funded by and managed by entrepreneurs working at European scale. Our teams mostly being based in Italy and France and carrying out projects internationally. As a part of a group, we share a common culture around flexibility and agility. And one example of this being that we all work remotely. Our goal is to help you create and deliver impactful experiences for your users. We do this putting in place a holistic approach. Of course, we're going to talk about this method in part today. The goal is, of course, to create better experiences for everyone by considering not only your objectives as clients, but also your constraints. We have different solutions to support every stage of the product lifecycle, whether that be early on conducting market research to better determine the product market fit, optimizing an existing product or service, leveraging QA solution to ensure that the experience corresponds with the expectations of your target audience on all devices, and digital sustainability, which is, of course, a big part of our goals and objectives, for which for us encompasses accessibility, sustainable design, and inclusivity. That being said, we are going to talk about the topic that we're interesting today. So we are very fortunate today to have with us two exceptional speakers, two exceptional experts. Christian Bastien, I'll let you introduce yourself, even I'm sure that a lot of us already know you.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, I'm a teacher of cognitive ergonomics and human factors. I have a background in experimental psychology. My research topics are design methods or evaluation methods for user experience. And more recently, we were working on persuasive technologies.
Okay, great. And let's just be more precise. You are the co-author of Bastien's ergonomic criteria.
Criteria that are mostly used in the French community. In the English-speaking community, we're talking about Nielsen's heuristics more frequently.
Okay, thank you, Christian, and welcome. Alessandro, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi to everyone. I'm Alessandro. I lead the UX research team in Unguess. I'm a designer on many years of work in this field. I oversee all the activities in the qualitative and quantitative testing and user research in general. I'm also a lecturer in small courses about ergonomics and usability, and I'm very happy to speak about Christian, because I knew and I studied his accessible criteria, usability criteria, and I think it's a big pleasure to be here. So
it's also a big pleasure for us to have you here, Alessandro. Thank you. Well, I'm going to introduce myself as well. So I'm Lisa Jeanson. I'm lead UX at Perfection and PhD in cognitive ergonomics. Actually, Christian was my supervisor during my thesis. This is how we know each other. My main research topics are mental workload and basically how to help users using tools without forcing themselves, without getting tired, basically. And well, as I said, we are going to talk about usability evaluation, and as the title of our webinar said, we are going to try to find solution to work quick but not dirty, research analysis. And well, first, we thought it would be very useful to align on the basics and to explain what usability is. And for that, I'll let you, Christian, the academic expert, define what we call usability, if you may.
Well, as you can see, we define usability with these three dimensions: effectiveness, efficiency, and user satisfaction. We're going to talk about how to evaluate these dimensions. I think there's something missing, but it's around the not the inspection methods, but how we design by applying guidelines, design guidelines or ergonomic recommendations, if we may say, during the design phase. But as we know, designing interfaces requires that we evaluate these design with real people. So we're going to take, well, usually we talk about model-based methods. Well, model-based are very time-consuming. They are not easy to apply. And probably that those methods are only used in the research area. When people are doing research, they just have time and they have the budget to use model-based methods. We talk about GUMS models, qualitative architecture models, and things like that. But it's rarely used by, I would say, UX expert, for instance. Inspection methods, well, it appeared around 1990, I think, with the first heuristics were proposed by Jacob Nielsen. Well, it's a way of looking at the interface and trying to reveal design choices that are not coherent with what we'd like to see when design good interfaces. We have a lot of inspection methods. We talk about Nielsen's heuristic, of course, cognitive walkthrough, the ergonomic criteria, but you can also use style guides or standards from the ISO 9240 documents to evaluate your design. Well, besides that, you have user tests, of course. Most of the people use user tests. And of course, questionnaires when you want to evaluate user satisfaction. I mean, user tests are good for evaluating performances, efficiency, and things like that. Inspection methods are used to look at the interface to identify design flaws, and questionnaires for user satisfaction. So the first thing I think we have to mention is that if you want a good interface, you need to use more than one usability method. And probably that Alessandro would agree with that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, of course, you have to cross the modality and the kind of data you're collecting from user, right? This is how we do.
Yeah, because if, for example, if you use the ergonomic criteria or the Nielsen's heuristic to evaluate your interface, you may identify design flaws, but maybe those design flaws will not bother the users. On the other hand, you may have good design choices on the interface, but maybe those choices will have will have users get some problems. So it's not because you identify design flaws that those design flaws will have impact on users' performance. And sometimes good choices have negative impact. So the idea is to try to mix all these methods to get a good interface at the end.
Okay, so we'll try to keep that in mind, and also the different types of method that exist during these whole session and discussion.
Yeah.
Well, I found interesting a statistic about how we use methods and how UX professionals can evaluate usability and interfaces. Actually, a survey by UXPA found that 60% of UX professionals cite budget constraints as a primary barrier to conducting user research effectively. Well, Alessandro, as you conduct a lot of user research, do you think that statistic is accurate? Can you talk a bit about what's your experience of constraints?
Yeah, I think that yeah, it could be also generous. I think that probably the all UX professional have problem or constraint in general when approaching the user research, because there is a time constraint. Sometimes the design must be very fast, so you don't have time. Sometimes you don't have budget, and sometimes also you don't have also the necessary maturity in the organization to understand the importance of having user research and to have a human-centered approach in your processes. So it's an everyday challenge about the constraints, and then the suggestion, I do a lot of mentorships with young designers because I come from that field. I'm very also active in communities, so I love to speak with people. And the thing that I suggest usually in trying to focus and to evangelize a little bit in their company, in their spaces, in their teams, and speak about the importance of a human-centered approach and the involvement of users in the design process, and trying to do some user research in person so because when we present the results of user research and the involvement of the users in products, we see also stakeholders can quite easily change their minds, their approach, and understand the real power of user involvement. So I always suggest to try to do some user research here on there, and then can explain to all the stakeholders the importance and the results of the user involvement.
Okay, so what you're saying is that part of our job is to convince our clients and stakeholders to do user research, and one way of convincing them is to just do research and see the results, right?
Yeah, share the results everywhere, and also explain your decision based on some numbers or some behavior that you observed based on something. So having because I started designing in many years, and I was convinced that it was the designer that must decide, without their expertise, must decide what is the better thing. But when you start speaking to the users, everything changes. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one of the problems we're facing is also to quantify the return of investment of a
yes,
user-centered design approach and of the evaluation, because we're talking about evaluation, and we lack those kind of data. I mean, we don't publish enough on the return of investment to show
Yeah.
people the positive effect. But there's so negative effect of not doing research, user research, and not evaluating the design of an interactive system.
So you're saying that we shouldn't only measure the return of investment of user research, but also what happens when you don't have any user research before you're conceiving your tools, you're designing
Yeah,
your. Yeah.
exactly. But I mean, of course, companies are not ready to tell other people the bad effect of bad design. And it's difficult. When I teach ergonomics, I try to find examples of bad design, the effect of bad design of the economy of companies, for example. But there's only a few documented studies like this. It's difficult to find.
Yeah, so we should gather those examples and take them. Yeah, of course. But I mean, what happens? I completely agree with you about the big part of our job to convince clients and to make sure that they are they are ready to do user research. But still, I can't help thinking that sometimes it's just very, very difficult for a client to find time and to find budget to do user research. So my question is, what happens then? And is it really possible for us to do quick and dirty user research and quick and dirty usability evaluation?
Yeah, but I think that before that, the question we should ask our clients is, what's the problem? What's the problem? I mean, are you asking me to do something on your application, your mobile app, or your website? If you can't have a baseline measure, how are you going to evaluate the impact of your user studies, of your evaluation? And sometimes the first thing is, okay, let's have a look of what's going on now. So to do so, you have to do user research. You have to evaluate, you have to evaluate the user experience before doing anything. Because if you evaluate your website, your application, and if you modify the interface, what's the gain of that? What's the return on the investment? If you don't have any baseline data, I mean, it's...
What's the business objective behind it? That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and I noticed also that putting also usability metrics, it's a nice thing because many times usability is only conceived as something that's subjective. So everyone can say their opinion about what they think it's satisfying. Okay, satisfaction is usually something subjective. Okay, but the other two measure of usability, efficiency, and effectiveness are measurable, very, very easy measurable. And so putting also this kind of data in also in the other part of the product teams, it's another work of evangelization. So speaking about with product managers, product owner, also with developers, and presenting them the importance of to track also efficiency, like or effectiveness in their flows, in their products, also to have the real data to discuss. And so, and also you can relate that metrics to the business metrics. So relating the effectiveness of a funnel with the business that comes out and the revenues that funnel can produce. So I think that and many times our colleagues, like researcher designers, come from industries or for fields that are not so related to metrics. So it's our fault sometimes to speaking every time in a qualitative way, that it's nice, but I think that we must start also tracking something because we need to put numbers to the stakeholders.
And I know if you have that kind of experience with some clients. We started with usability inspection methods because there was a lot of money. There's like not enough time, so we did a usability inspection. We get the result to the company, and then they said, "Oh, well, that's nice, but I mean, I don't know if it's really a problem for users." So the next step is, okay, let's do a user test. Okay, so started with a small panel of users. There was some problems identified. Then they said, oh yeah, but well, it's only for 5 or 7 people. It's your panel is biased. Okay, so let's get a more important panel. That when they sometimes have a lot of reason not to believe in the evaluation report. So you also have to explain the process of inspection, the user test, and it's not easy.
Yeah, so we're kind of we are like teachers, I would say, like we have this responsibility as user experience expert to to make result accessible and readable for our clients. That's what, yeah, that's the point of your what you're saying, Christian.
Yeah, but I think it also depends a lot on the type of client you have. If you're
Yeah.
working with, I would say in France, SNCF, RATP, if you're with the Air France, Airbus, they have so huge department of human factors and ergonomics specialists. Don't they know what they're going to get with those kind of user studies? They know what they're going to get with the user testing, but because they know that the human factors is very important for them. But a lot of other clients just don't. I mean, it's if people have problems in the to buy something, I mean, it's not that nobody will die. I mean, but it's more difficult to yeah, it's more difficult to convince them than to convince large societies, large companies who are used to do user studies. I mean.
But still, how do we balance user needs and with business constraints and tight deadlines? How do we do concretely? What would be the first step of of a usability evaluation when we don't have time and well we're lacking of budget, for example?
Well, I think that's there is an imbalance between the knowing of a company. So there are companies that are very focused on metrics, on numbers, so they know everything that their users do, but they
Yeah.
don't know why. So probably that kind of companies must focus on something that is more qualitative, trying to understand the deep reasons about the numbers that they have. And from the other part, there are companies that are very focused on market research of quantitative data. They do a lot of explorative research, but they don't do a focus or something about what the users do, what are the user behaviors. So they are only focused on attitudes without looking at the behaviors. There are very few companies that have both sides very discovered, and so probably having a mixed approach, as also Christian said before, having a mixed approach between different methodologies, mixing also quantitative and qualitative, also during the same study. So having the different approaches could help companies to understand the what users do and why they do, and also what they think about there. Because when we do usability testing, we have a lot of insights that are from other aspects. So we know many things about the brand perception that is not in scope, but there are results about that, and so we can share with all the company all these other insights about other aspects. So the importance of user research, I think it's also sharing knowledge about other aspects that we are not discussing, we are not researching right now, but we find a lot of seeds of other work, other discussion, other researches.
So the first step would then be to look at the existing data and to gather every knowledge we could have from the users, whether it's behaviors or interviews, result of interviews, and data analysis and stuff like that, and then we can have the what, the why, and the whole explanation of the interaction between users and their tools, right? That's what you said earlier, Christian, about the mixing approach, and the first thing we need to know is to mix methods to have different kind of data.
Yeah, and I think that another very important point is to document every evaluation, because I was working with the Luxembourg government, and there was a special department dedicated to the design and evaluation of their websites for all governments, agencies. And because they were having a lot of sub-consultants doing inspection methods, user testing, they define their own template for user testing and for inspection methods. So even if there was a lot of different companies working for the government, every report was done the same way. It was easier to document the process and to mix the report of the different type of evaluation. But there's a participant who is saying a lot of big companies have big UX department, but their voice is often not heard. Look at SNCF. This is, well, it's right. There's a lot, well, even within big companies, UX department are always fighting with marketing departments. This is another problem, but the idea is to, again, to document the result of the evaluation methods that we use, and to, I mean, after that, I don't know what we can do. Well, instead of fighting with the marketing departments.
Well, let's not fight yet. Let's be peaceful. Let's remain peaceful. But well, that's very interesting that we have on the chat. Of course, we should mix quant and qual attitude and behavioral data to get better result, and to make sure that the quality of a result is sufficient to make decision, to help our client to make a good decision. Well, so if we can't reduce the number of techniques or of methods we use, where can we save time? In which parts? You talked about templates, which is a great idea and a great way to make sure that we save time doing the report. But do we have other tips for our audience? Do we have other way to save time? For example, in the number of users that we are gonna interrogate, observe.
Well, I think that in the field of user experience and usability of it, we lack tools. Of course, we all know some tools like Capian, for example, to conduct usability inspection of websites. It's a plugin that helps you take pictures of the pages, document the problem, associate an ergonomic criteria or something like this, and it generates an evaluation report. We have the same things with user testing. I mean, we need to have tools to help us analyze the data. What takes time in the evaluation part of the thing is to analyze the data, to analyze the videos, to write the report. This is time consuming. And instead of having less participants, I think that we should rather use tools to help us analyze what we get. Because doing, even if it's nobody will agree with me, but doing user testing with 5 to 10 people is, I don't know, it's not enough. But what would be the price of doing a user test with 20, 25 people? If you don't have any tool to analyze your data, I mean, it's just not possible. No client will buy a test when we know that approximately for one participant in a user test, it costs about 800 or 1,000 euros by participant.
So you're saying that the more efficient the tools are, the more user we're going to be able to interrogate.
Yes, of course.
I'm sure, Alessandro, you have a lot to say about this, because we use the user test platform at Unguess and Perfection. So do you agree with what Christian said?
Yeah, I think that tools are very important, but you must do a step down, a step behind, and working about speaking about the importance of have research operations in your organization. So having shared documents. Like a repository, so many tools can do also repository, but before starting everything, like when you said before also that we must share templates, we must also have the efficiency also to save time, and so having templates, having the data shared. In many companies they redo research on the same things because they don't know the other teams are looking at the same things on the same product.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
having I'm a big fan of democratization in research, and also and it starts with sharing their documents, their data, their information, and so like the first tool. I think that every company we can start. Everyone can start a repository only with Google Drive and a Notion page or something like this. So it could be free for starting. Then if research becomes a part of your daily routine, probably you have to use a professional tool about it. But I think that before starting thinking of tool, you must rethink your organization and starting about sharing knowledge, sharing data and informations. And then when you have to have also efficiency on the operation side, yeah, using tools for using for usability testing or for surveying, so integration also tools for surveying. I think that's a very nice idea. I know that there are so many tools right now. If you look every year, there is a nice work of user interviews about the UX research tool map. That is also very nice from a graphic point of view. And every year there are so many new tools. Now everyone is integrated with AI, and so I think that also choosing the right tool is not an easy thing. So starting from the basics, I think that understanding the importance of research, the importance of cross-fertilization, then you can use the tools directly you need from your need in the moment.
Okay, so what we should not compromise on is the before part of the research, is what you're saying. It's very important to choose the right tool, the right methods, and to gather all the information and to organize the information related to business objectives. And then we can start using IA tool or automate, using templates as well to save time during the analysis. Is it what you're? But we shouldn't compromise on the before, on the.
Yes.
Okay, that's a very useful for our audience, I think. And well, we could talk about this topic for hours, but we don't have hours. I suggest before the question and ask session, an answer session, I suggest we summarize the key takeaway for evaluating usability quickly and effectively, if you want. So, what would be the main message that you want to convey today? I know it's hard.
I would say that even if you do a quick usability inspection, even if you do a user testing with a few participants, this is not, it's okay. It's okay as long as you have the right methodology. Again, if you don't know how to conduct a user test correctly, a platform for remote A/B testing will be useless. If you don't know how to conduct an inspection evaluation, you may have the right plugin, it's going to be useless. I mean, before that, you have to know how to do things. And conducting a user test, I mean, you have to learn how to do that. Doing an inspection method, you have also to know how to. So before the technology, before the tools, you have to have a good methodology.
Stick to the basics.
Stick to the basics, yeah.
Yeah, great. Very clear. What about you, Alessandro? What piece of advice would you give?
Yeah, I totally agree with Christian. And I think that mixing methodologies and mixing approaches could be a nice takeaway. And also about trying to evangelize everyone about human-centered approach is another key point that could help everyone of us. And also, I think that Christian said before, like having measuring the ROI. So like trying to track this is another key takeaway that Christian suggests that I think it's very useful.
Okay, so don't do a one-shot research, but make sure that this research is integrated in a systemic approach. Is what you're saying, in a arrowist kind of way. It's very interesting. I would suggest also to make sure that you're trying to solve the right problem, like Christian said earlier.
Yes.
Because if you're not sure where you want to go, well, there is a few chances that you're gonna get there. So make sure that you're trying to solve the right problem, and just stick to, as we say in perfection, stick to the why.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this exciting discussion.